but you have like a terrible, unloving family.
Okay.
Should you just be like, you know what though, it's okay because I have really great health?
Okay.
Or can you be like, it'd be really nice if my family wasn't such a terrible group of people?
Okay, I'm missing the point here.
I'm
You
saying-
just lost me.
If you have,
I don't know, she's
If you want more, yeah, you might have a good life, but maybe I want more. What's the big deal if I want more?
more.
different.
What if it's like in one category of life, you're very blessed and you're aware of that, and you show that gratitude,
Okay.
but in some other aspect of life, like, I don't know, like something else, like.
Okay, so that I would say is not necessarily automatically ingratitude. But I will say that if you are ungrateful, you're given a mountain of gold, it's going to feel like a little molehill of gold, right? So if you have $10 and you're grateful, you'll feel like you have $100, right? If you have $10, if you're grateful. If you're ungrateful, you'll feel like you have $2.
So if you want more, but you can want more in other categories, in other ways.
There's
and
nothing
still
wrong
be
with even
grateful?
wanting more from that after that. But the key is that if I'm ungrateful, I'm going to feel like I have nothing.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah. But this also applies to miracles too. Yeah. That when you see a miracle, and I don't know if I were to ask all of you, can you think of an example of when like your prayer just absolutely seemed like it was just answered to the point that you're blown away? If you do not respond with gratitude, you're going to want another miracle. And this is exactly what happens with them, right? They see the sea getting split, and then they want more. So they see their tormentor drowned, and tormentors people drowned, and then on top of that they see the sea getting split with their own eyes. So that's one segment.
Does it seem like cold?
Your coat? Did you come in with it?
By the fireplace.
Just wear the sweater vest and that big pillow. I'll keep you warm. Okay. I have 51. Another thing to think about is that all these events are not necessarily in chronological order. We'll address that in a moment. So then when we made a promise, or we appointed for Moses 40 nights, okay, and then you took the calf after this, or after him, and you were doing wrong. A couple points. The word for doing wrong, like in your translations, what's the last word? What says you? What's the last word in your translation of
You
the?
have wronged yourselves.
Wrong yourselves. Okay, good. So the word is
I have evildoers.
evildoers, unjust. Okay. So the word is volimun, which literally be people who make darkness. Good. And in the Quranic context, volim, which is literally darkness, the opposite of nur, light. Quranic context translates as oppressors, and almost always oppressors of yourself. They took to the calf. What does that mean?
Start worshiping.
So why not say worship the calf?
It does say that.
Your translation says that.
Yeah.
The literal text is they took the calf, or they took to the calf. Because in the adab of the Quran, nothing else can be worshipped. Okay. There is, of course, people who take others as their ilah, but in terms of the history, the most that's allowed in terms of language is that they took to the calf. Okay. So what's taking place here? Moses is their leader. Okay, he's their prophet. Moses has a personality like the personality of Omar. May Allah be pleased with him, right? Not him or me, but like the Khalifa Omar, right? Very, very strong, powerful personality. He's gone for 40 nights, and then they go to the calf. Why would they go to the calf? Sorry? Okay, but why not just keep worshiping God, capital G?
Because it's visible in front of them?
So there's a couple theories. One is that they saw the nations around them also worshiping these animals made out of gold and such, and they wanted to be like them. So there's a lesson to think about right there. That this is a nation their prophet leaves, and they want to be like these other nations, even in their acts of worship, by copying them. And I just forgot the other theories. Just looking at the show.
I thought it was that when Musa ﷺ left them, their old priests and everything started to become vocal.
Yeah, the Samaritan Samedi. He basically has this he says, like, I have this inspiration, and then he calls on them to take all their gold and make this calf. And they make this calf in such a way so that when the wind would blow through it, you can actually hear it make sounds. How's that? Yeah, very good, very good. Okay.
So that's
not, because now, like, of course, with Charles Lee Preston, I think of, like.
Yeah, no, Ten Commandments basically corrupted everything, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, is that, like, in this movie, I'm thinking, now I get so confused between the biblical and the Quranic. It's like, dancing around, let's have like a calf.
I mean, the calf story there, I think, still fits in terms of the Quranic story. Yeah.
I swear I think in that, like.
In fact, you know what? I was actually picturing that calf now that I think about it. That's the calf.
Yeah, that's
From
what
the
I
movie.
picture.
Yeah.
Oh, the Ten Commandments?
And, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Jonathan has to. Okay, so
From like cold dead hands.
so what is again the historical lesson is that he goes away and then they start copying all these communities around them. The Islamic lesson gives us another clue to why the children of Israel fell apart. So I said the central reason is lack of gratitude. The other is that their story gets summed up in this hadith, which I think I've mentioned a million times already. That the Prophet, peace be upon him, says that there's two groups of people, that if they are upright, the whole population is upright. If they're corrupt, the whole population is corrupt. The Umara and the Ulama, the leaders and the scholars. Here, the leader leaves. He actually, who is his stand-in?
Aaron.
His brother, who's a prophet, right? But he didn't have this dominating personality. And then you had these other corrupt people who usurped his authority and led the people astray. ثُمَّ عَفَوْنَا عَنْكُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ. And then we forgave you after that, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you would be grateful. Good. So they did wrong, and they're forgiven, and so that they become grateful.
What's the difference between Afwa and Ghafara?
I've forgotten which is which in this moment, but one is basically that you're pardoned. It's still on your record, but it's not held against you. The other is that it's wiped away as though it never happened.
I think Afu is the one where it's like wiped away forever.
That's what I wanted to say. In
Afu?
fact, Yasmin Mujahid quoted the hadith, oh Allah, you afu, and this and that.
Yeah,
And then I began to
Sheikh
think.
Salah brought that up during our he was talking about where he was the idea is that it's wiped. It's
Okay.
not just forgiven; it's wiped off.
It's wiped as though it never happened.
Afwa is what is it? It's wiped away.
It's wiped away.
Expunged?
Because
Like it
that's what
never
I thought,
happened.
but then I started, literally earlier today, I started having doubts about what I'm saying.
It's like,
Sorry?
no, I was saying Afwa is wiped away. Ghafur is forgiven, but still there.
It's still, so like on the day of judgment, it's on your record, and then you're given forgiveness. Yeah. Okay, and why were they given this? So that they may become grateful. Okay, now I just mentioned that that this is not necessarily chronological order, because it says, you did this, you're forgiven. But now, what's the story in between, I-53 and 54? So,
I have
and,
a question. I'm sorry about chronological
yes,
order.
yes.
So the Pharaoh drowns and then this happens?
Yeah.
Where Musa goes away
So the Pharaoh drowns,
and then...
now they're in a position of safety. Okay. Moses goes, they turn to the calf. Okay.
And you said there were 500,000 people at that time?
600,000.
600,000.
Yeah.
So most of us know like 600,000 followers. These guys were the ones that actually witnessed all this happening. And then he just goes away to get his revelation for 40 days.
And right away,
And then right away they
How many
started-
years was that?
40
very short period of time. Meaning, the time from,
24 hour day.
sorry,
I'm wondering, yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
40 days, is
40
it
days,
like 40 days, like a month?
yeah, I mean, it's Earth.
Did they say 40 years?
I'm not understanding the question.
Yeah, I guess time
Could it
still.
be 48 or like
That's
a
right.
period?
No, this part is understood as 40, this is understood as 40, 24 hours, 40, 24 hour days. Yeah,
So they were like nomadic, right? So they were
Remember
moving.
that.
So why did they want to be like the nations next to them since they were like moving the whole time?
because you know how a lot of Muslims want to do things that other non-Muslim communities do? Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, so I was thinking like this. I went to the Mohir thing on Friday, and
Why
then
would you do such a thing? I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Yeah.
my sister, whatever, it's okay. She told me about this. Whatever. Anyways, what's it called? He was saying that like, that I don't know this. I don't know the particulars. I thought I did, but he was saying that the Pharaoh made a dua, and then also Allah didn't accept it.
So just before the water comes crashing down, he says, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, or the equivalent in his language. That one is
like there was some hadith that said like, or it was from Angel Jibril that said like, oh, I wanted to put water in his mouth or whatever because I was afraid that if he had said something that,
Yeah, I remember that too.
yeah, that Allah would forgive him.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
So then I'm confused there.
Okay, someone tell me the whole story. What's the story?
Oh,
Yeah, no, go ahead, because you're right. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
heard
heard-
the same thing that
there's
Angel
like this one
Jibril.
hadith that it said Angel Jibril put, I think it was he put water in his like
Yeah.
mouth, like he drowned him, put more water in his like mouth or whatever
Okay.
because he didn't want him to make a dua because he was afraid that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forgive him.
I mean, the Quran seems to say very clearly that he's taking shahada.
Okay, so
But
It's too late at that point. In other words, he's already visualized death at that point.
Yeah.
so how would we put the two together
is our
without it being a contradiction?
is it
That he had the intention to do this. That maybe he didn't verbalize it, you know, that he had developed the intention to ask for shahada, right?
But that's not
It still seems like that would be
Yeah, the
enough.
Quran seems to say that it seems to imply that it was too late when the words were uttered.
Yeah.
It was too late. In other words, it was, you know, you cannot, you have to have, you know. And it's one of the, I guess it's sort of one of those things where I almost get bothered by like the stories that were just being, you know, narrated, which I'm sure there's evidence to back them, but it's sort of like, in other words, if those stories were meant to be, especially when it comes from a hadith, that's one thing. When they start, especially when I start getting the, you know, the speeches and the Israeliyat start coming out and people start narrating these stories, is it if Allah had meant for us to know that, He would have told us that.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, He's saying that there can be a point of no return.
Sure.
And so, do we really? Is it going to affect your iman in any way more? Knowing that, other than knowing that there is a point of no return, so be careful, don't let yourself fall on that point of no return.
So I would say that reading it from the Quranic perspective, yes, right? If I'm coming in from as someone who is Jewish and knows my book, or Christian who knows the book, then it might have some significance. You know what I'm saying? But I'd say, yeah, from within the Quranic universe, no, you don't need to know that. Yeah. But what would this then mean? One possibility is that the Quran is saying that, okay, that story that you have is actually not sound, it's fake, right? So one of the functions of the Quran in relationship to the previous books is also to correct those, you know, the wrong things. But yeah, I don't know.
Because oftentimes, the only place I've heard like some of the Israeliyat you read in, you know, certain places, I mean, you know, in certain classical tafsir, it seems like the Israeliyat are only heard in Muslim books. You know, unless,
Well, they come from the
opposed to-
Sahabas, right?
as opposed to actually hearing them from Jews and Christians, for example.
Oh, they're there. I mean, you'll find them in the Talmud, you won't find them in the Bible.
But I mean, the Israeliyat, when we call it, and my understanding is that these are the stories that the Sahabas, you know, uttered in front of, you know.
No. Israeliyat is basically what our later scholars found in the books of Jews and Christians, primarily in terms of Jews.
Because
And most of
then
that's in the
they
Talmud.
asked Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam about this. The Sahabas asked him about X, Y, and Z story.
There's that too.
And so that's why what I'm going to say is, so there's got to be some other stuff that came out later.
Meaning, if it's coming from the Prophet, it'd still be within Hadith literature. I'm saying Israeliyat is referring to material that's not even in the Hadith literature.
No, what I'm saying is that, like, there's stories that were passed around by Christians and Jews at the time of the Prophet before they accepted Islam.
Okay.
And so the Sahabas, when they accepted Islam, came to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and they gave him these Israeliyat stories that were circulating at those times, and he gave the hadith that you pointed out before, that you can't reject it, you can't deny it, and that sort of thing, you know?
Yeah, and just the key point that I'm making is that the material, the actual textual material that's considered Israeliyat, is the scholarly discoveries later on. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding.
I heard this in, you know, Kamaluddin Ahmad.
Yeah.
So he had said that one of his lectures.
Okay. So now in terms of the details of how they got their forgiveness. So, Ayah 53, وَإِذْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابَ وَالْفُرْقَانَ. And when we gave Musa the Kitab and the Furqan, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ, so that you may be guided. So the Kitab, meaning the prescription, the Furqan, meaning that which tells you the split, or what is right and what is wrong. Essentially, the Torah. Ayah 54, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ. So Moses says to his people, Ya qawmi, O my people, Another key point to think about. Why is a prophet speaking to their own people? Simple basic logic. Why? Why do prophets speak to their own people?
So people.
Because that's their charge. They're told to do so.
Okay. And what is the wisdom then of assigning prophets from within a population?
They know them, they trust them.
Yeah. So you're speaking to them, their language, you know the person, as opposed to an outsider coming in, right? Conversations we were having is that, okay, I don't know how many churches, whatever, mashallah, I've spoken in. No matter what, the first thing that people see when I speak is what?
You're brown.
Beard.
I'm brown, right?
Vest.
And then they see the vest, and then awe takes over them. Right? They can't control themselves. They start spinning. They start saying goofy things. No, but the point is that the prophets are sent to talk to their own people.
You know, with
Yes, sir.
the Quraysh and even people like Abu Talib,
Yeah.
who actually really, in their heart, we believe that there may have been some element of them accepting the truth, but had a hard time vocalizing. With the Pharaoh, he like vehemently in his core denied the truth, right?
This is
And
interesting.
so, like,
In the Quranic narrative, it seems like exactly
Yeah.
that. In the biblical narrative, Moses and Aaron keep getting sent back to him because it seems like he's getting softer and softer, and then he gets harder. Yeah, this is in the Book of Exodus. It's really interesting how different the two stories are. Yeah. The Quranic Pharaoh is a horrible, horrible man, like the worst man in history, essentially. Right.
So how is that a lesson to us that it was a point of no return? Because I don't know, like the way that the Quran talks about the Pharaoh is that he is like the worst. But should we be afraid that we're going to become like Pharaoh, like to that degree?
I think the lesson would be that even the worst possible person could turn, but everybody has a point of no return, right? There's a point where it's too late.
But it's not also only by death. I mean, like when you're really close.
When you're at the moment of death, literally.
But isn't there also like, there was this man who he came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked the Prophet ﷺ to like pray for like wealth for him, and the Prophet ﷺ did that, and then after it was like he like wanted camels or sheep or something like that, and then he like because of he had all these camels or sheep, he had to move away from the city and move away from the Prophet, and so because he had to graze them and whatever, and so then he went farther and farther away from the Prophet ﷺ, and then one day the Sahabas went to him to like collect zakat or whatever, and he said, no, I don't know what this is, like I have, because he hadn't been going, right? And he
Well, that's kind of scary.
right, he said, oh, I don't know what this is, like no, and the Sahaba was like, okay, whatever, they turned away, and then he found out that, oh, like I have to pay this, and then the Prophet ﷺ said no.
Wow.
He said no, it's too late.
So long.
Too late to take the zakat.
Yeah.
That's really scary.
So I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, that was kind of a downer.
No, that's half of my life is being down with people. The other half is to be hopeful. Okay.
Always be grateful.
So Musa comes to his people and says, "Oh my people, indeed, 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 you have wronged yourself. Zalamtum." Again, you've done darkness to yourself. You've oppressed yourself by taking the calf. So, fa'tubu, so do tawbah, ila bari'ikum, to the one who created you. Faqtulu anfusakum, kill yourselves. ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ عِنْدَ بَارِئِكُمْ. And this is best for you with your creator. And then what? فَتَابَ عَلَيْكُمْ. And then he turned to you. Indeed, he is the one who turns, and he is the merciful. So again, reading this from a biblical perspective versus Quranic perspective. Biblical perspective. The people who worshipped the calf, or the people who caused everyone to worship the calf, were all executed. How many people were executed? 70,000. Again, when you see 7 in a number in a Quran or Bible, that basically means many. So it could literally mean 70,000, or it could mean many, 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 many people were executed. That's the Quranic narrative. Or that's the biblical narrative. Sorry?
Oh, that's a good.
Sorry?
Not that it's important, I guess.
What's the question?
How are they executed? Were they just...
They're like taken to this like cliff and then slaughtered. Yeah. The Quranic perspective. There's one person in the room who's really going to like what we're going to say. The Quranic perspective, when it says kill yourselves, it's kill your nafs. Sufi. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. And so there's also a lesson that's taken here from the Quranic narrative, that they turn to the calf because of problem in their nafs, a problem in their ego. And so they're told, kill your ego. You know?
Well, why is yourself represented only by your nafs? I mean, you should be more than your nafs, right?
You are, and the nafs is just your ego.
So the nafs would be, I mean, in terms of all the uses of nafs, it's just the word self, commonly used as your ego. It's also breathing, related to breathing too.
What, do you know why this translation says like kill the guilty among you?
That's Halim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's more taking like the historical. So it says the guilty should be in parentheses. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So it might be that the guilty were executed?
So meaning the historical narrative is that the guilty were all executed.
Okay,
Right.
like that is
So
true.
that's still taken as factually correct, right?
That's the
Meaning, if it is or isn't, I don't think it makes much difference, right? Meaning, if I'm coming from a biblical perspective and I'm looking at this story, what is it saying? It says, remember this story from your book. Okay. But then, the wisdom point that's taken from this is that what is it that causes me to sin? It's a problem in my nafs. And so the key is to kill my nafs. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. I'm getting confused. Okay. That is better for you with your Lord. Yeah, so it's two parts. It's do tawbah and then kill your nafs. That is better for you, and then be accepted your tawbah. Okay.
Did it say anything about finding a Morid? Or finding a worship?
I think not at this point. Remember we were talking about blank spaces?
Ellipses, you gotta read between the lines stuff better.
Yeah. So, I have 55. I didn't skip anything, did I? Okay. I have 55, next event. And when you said, again remember, Allah Ta'ala is speaking to the children of Israel, but who's being spoken to? Who feels they're being spoken to? The Jews of Medina. So saying, you remember, you did this, even though these events were 1,500 years before them. You said to Moses, we will not believe in you. We will never believe in you until we see Allah clearly manifest with our own eyes. And then they got hit by a bolt of lightning while looking. Okay. And so the basic point here is that why are they saying to Moses, we're not going to believe in you until we see Allah? So let's take a step back. Moses, when he first has the communication from Allah, right? The tree, the bush. Doesn't he say to Moses, doesn't he say to Allah Ta'ala, can I see you? Right? And then Allah Ta'ala says, you're not going to be able to handle it. I'm paraphrasing. It says, go look at the mountain. This thin ray of divine light hits the mountain, crumbs it into ashes. What's different between what he's asking and what they're asking?
Isn't this because they saw the other miracles, so they're just wanting to?
Is the pot of gold? I mean, the mountain of gold that you were talking about, I guess,
Yeah. So Moses, why is he in that other event asking, oh Allah, can I see you?
Isn't that like curiosity, and this is like gratitude?
Yeah, that would be essentially just a natural curiosity, right? Allah, can I see you? Just like we had the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam saying, can you show me how you give life to the dead? I mean, he's already having conversation with him, but can you also show me? Here, they're saying, we're not going to believe you unless you give this to us. And this is again, the consequences. Well, it becomes a power struggle, but the source being ingratitude, right? We're not going to believe you until you give us this, even though they've already been given all these other amazing things. And they got hit by lightning. Okay, biblical story. Almost the same thing. The biblical story, this is where it really gets strange from an Islamic perspective. So picture a big mountain with, like, at the top there's clouds and a thunderstorm. God is up there.
This is
The biblical story. Like, from our perspective, it looks really, really strange. So God is up there at the top of this mountain, and they're saying, we want to see God. Okay. So they were taken up there. And again, some 70,000 of them were taken up there. Got hit by lightning. They all die or they all pass out, and then they're all revived. Okay. You go back to tell their people, yeah, we saw God. Okay. Quranic perspective, they asked for this, they got hit by lightning. Then ayah 56. ثم
Where is
بعثناكم.
it? Sorry, where is the highlighting?
Previous ayah.
That's 55.
فأخذتكم الصاعقة.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be
Yeah, the kids.
Make sure.
Okay. So then, ثم بعثناكم من بعد موتكم, and we revived you after your death. Why? So that you may become grateful. But again, they wanted more in terms of the miraculous. Their appetite was not satisfied, and so they have this experience and they're brought back to life.
So it was the people that were struck with thunder, they got revived here as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the key is that the Quran doesn't emphasize how many. It makes it even seem like it's all of them.
Oh.
But it's fair to say at least enough of them for it to be a significant event. And then ayah 57.
So the 70K folks potentially are the 500,000 that were executed. You know, the assumption is the other people did accept Musa as you know, the prophet.
That's a good question. It seems to be the case, but it seems that it might be that the 70,000 were either the preachers or the people that are actually doing the worshiping.
Oh, I see. Like
Right.
people in mind.
So it might be others who were not worshiping.
Oh.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Okay.
Omer.
The door is open. Close the door. Okay. Ayah 57. وَظَلَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْغَمَامَ, and we shaded you with clouds. وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَى, and we sent down to you manna and quail. What's manna? It's like,
Potatoes.
it's said to be, I've seen a whole bunch of different sources, but it's like maple syrup, that type of thing, like tree sap or something. So like Dr. Sarah says that the quail gave them protein and the manna gave them carbohydrates. Right? So, which is like half this room. So they're given manna and quail. Were they given the food already prepared, or was it just easy for them to catch? What do you think?
Prepared.
Majority opinion is that it was prepared. It was like fully prepared. And there's also the opinion that it was just easy for them to track down the food. Is it plausible that it was given to them prepared? I mean, they're given everything else, so.
So this is a sequential thing, right? Like
At this point now it's become sequential again.
so they had the thunder, you know, that struck
Yeah.
them. They revived, and then they came and told the people. They were not grateful, and then they asked for another favor. They gave them the clouds and the man and the clouds. So these are all the sequential things. What's that?
Yeah, thunderclap, yeah.
Then-
So the only difference between the Quranic version and the biblical version is that they were taken up on the mountain.
So in the biblical version, God is at the top of this mountain, and there's all this thunderstorm and everything, and they go up there.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, the Quran doesn't express how that whole experience happened. Yeah, I'll tell you, when I was first reading that, it just I had to read it a couple times because from our perspective, it made no sense. That God's up there in the mountain, you're going to go see him.
Yeah.
Okay. So we shaded you with clouds and gave you manna and quail. And then we said, eat of the good things we have provided for you. And then what does it say? وَمَا ظَلَمُونَ, and they did not wrong us. وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ, and they did wrong their own selves. Same word, nafs, we're equivalent. Okay. So now this is where the story is going to take an unhappy turn. And we only have 2 more ayahs left anyway. So they have manna and quail, and they're told, eat of what we have provided for you, but they still did wrong. Ayah 58. وَإِذْ قُلْنَا أُدْخُلُوا هَذِهِ الْقَرِيَّةَ, enter this town. What town is this? Jerusalem. Okay. And eat from it wherever you want. Sound familiar? Who's that said to? Adam and Eve, peace be upon them. Right? Eat wherever you want. The words are exactly the same, just in a different order. Okay. But then eat abundantly, or enter the gate into the town prostratingly. Sujjadan. So what does that mean? Think of it like entering into the gate like in ruku type position. or physically in sajda. Okay? And when you're doing this, say this word, hittatun, okay? Which is not an Arabic word, and I've never come across anybody who actually knows this word, but we're told that it translates as something like tawbah, repentance. And here's what you will
According
get.
to whom? Where's that coming from?
Where's what coming from?
That the meaning of it is understood.
That's one of those things that's just commonly in the books everywhere. Yeah.
Just here, like, believe us.
Believe us? Okay, interesting. Does it give a footnote or anything?
No.
Okay. If you go to Jerusalem, there's actually, they have all these gates around the campus, and one is Bab Hittatun. Like one is said to be the spot of that actual location. Good.
Now, does
Yes.
it say enter, like, actually prostrating? Because here it says with humility.
So it's sujjadan. So I would translate that as prostratingly. It's essentially an adverb, that form. Waqulu hittatun, and say hittatun. And then what will they get? We will forgive you your sins. We will increase for you, or we will increase the reward, or those who do good get. Okay, a promise of gratitude. One side of gratitude, we said that if I have $10 and I'm grateful, I feel like I have $100. If I have $10 and I'm ungrateful, I feel like I have $1. Good. But a promise of gratitude is that if I am grateful, Allah Ta'ala will give me more. Okay. So think about it. If I'm ungrateful, I want more. Okay. If I'm grateful, I'm satisfied, I'm content, and yet Allah Ta'ala will give me more. Interesting math. Okay. So here, if they do this, they'll be forgiven and they'll be given more. So think about it. They're told essentially to do a sajda. Sound familiar? Dun, dun, dun. But then ayah 59, it all falls apart. فَبَدَّلَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا قَوْلًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي قِيلَ لَهُمْ فَبَدَّلَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. So those who are doing wrong changed قَوْلًا, changed the word غَيْرَ الَّذِي قِيلَ لَهُم, to a word that was not said to them, or to something other than what was said to them. So what's the story in terms of tafsir? Instead of entering in this prostratingly head down position, saying hittatun, one narration is that they entered like in the spider walk. You know what I'm talking about. Another is that they entered in reverse sajda. So think about what you're doing when you're entering reverse sajda, right? What are you aiming to?
Yeah.
And then part of the commentaries.
Bizarre.
Sorry? Yeah.
It's just weird.
And part of the commentaries is that instead of saying hittatun, which is said to mean something like tawbah, they said some other word which means something like wheat or something like that. Like they said like the wrong word. But why? Yeah.
I thought they have reached their point of no return a long time ago.
Yeah, no, exactly. Even after
Hey, but they're given chance after chance after chance.
But again, though, let's not lose sight of the fact that this is meant to be. It's not supposed to be. These are abnormal, evil people. These are normal people. It can happen. That was the first.
It can happen to you. Yeah. Yeah. That's the point.
It does happen.
Yeah. Meaning they're given chance after chance after chance, and they keep taking the wrong turn. So the result is that we sent down upon those who were doing wrong, rijzan, so a scourge, minas samai, from the sky, because they were defiantly disobeying. So now put the math together. Starting problem is lack of gratitude. Okay? And this includes these influential people in their community. And that led to disobedience. Okay? Defiant disobedience. This is fisq. Now think back to when we were talking about, we had the people of taqwa, the kafirs, the munafiqs, and then the fasiq. The fasiq is the shameless in terms of disobedience. And what is that doing? It's corrupting your character. So when they were being told to do such and such, they're probably thinking we're actually doing the right thing. Okay? Here's what God really means. And so a lesson that's taken from here is that when you are interpreting God's words, it's not simply a rational exercise. That the condition of your heart is going to steer it towards corruption, or it's going to steer it towards healthy behavior. But they reached a point of corruption so that they were overriding the words in a completely wrong way, collectively. Good. And this led to their destruction, or this led to this scourge coming from the sky.
Wait, are you saying that it was like like they were like faucets, or are you saying that they like were over analyzing and then they
So,
like
so the formula I'm saying is, starting point is lack of gratitude. Yeah. One consequence we saw of lack of gratitude is that their appetite is not getting satisfied. Another consequence of lack of gratitude is disobedience, which led to defiant disobedience. Yeah. And the core, the seed leading to starting this is lack of gratitude. The defiant disobedience corrupted their heart to such a point that in terms of intellect they might have been sound, meaning they're just smart, but when you're interpreting text, you can easily interpret text one way or the other, right? And they're interpreting it in a corrupt way, and they couldn't even tell.
You know, it's just strange, right? I mean, as a notion, when, you know, like, they were told to just walk in prostratingly, but then they actually chose to do the exact opposite, you
Yeah,
know?
but
And so that seemed, like, ridiculous. you
I
know?
think if it was that one event in a vacuum, yeah.
But it's not.
But we're looking at this whole evolution that's taking place.
Yeah.
You know, over. I mean, just looking from the perspective of, okay, you were in slavery, okay, and now you're being told just enter in prostratingly. So it seems like even more like they should obey. Okay?
Yeah.
You were saved from slavery, now do this. But this is human nature.
But
Yeah.
I think it kind of makes sense, because when you think about immersion into wrongness, right?
Yeah, that's
So
what we're talking
if
about.
you are crossing a line and you feel bad about it, and after a certain point, that doesn't really, it becomes commonplace to you.
Yeah,
So you
that's exactly
progress
what we're
into
saying.
that, and then you cross a
Gets worse and
line
worse.
after which you don't have a vision of what
Mhm.
truth is.
That's exactly
And so
it.
if you're talking to somebody who is like that in regards to any concept, to them, their nonsensical speech is 100% logical.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this
You know,
is
and you're
what we're
kind of
saying.
like, how can you even say this? It makes
Yeah.
no sense.
So what we're saying is that through this path, they're not just losing their moral compass. Their moral compass is facing the opposite direction. Right, north becomes south. That's exactly what's happening here. And the seed is lack of gratitude. The lack of gratitude led to disobedience, which led to defiant disobedience, which led to, then again, it's collective, it's multiple people, right? Which led to overriding text. Yeah.
I find this so scary because it's like, you know, like it's so scary because it's like you can be so messed up and
Yeah.
not even know
I
it.
have no
I mean,
clue.
I'm like just kind of playing this in my head, like trying to imagine like 600,000 people walking up, coming in like spider walk. Like it just sounds so
Yeah.
weird.
Totally.
You know, like, I'm like, I just
Yeah.
don't understand how like,
Yeah.
you know, and like you see a species split and like you don't understand that. Like I don't know, and it just
Well,
it's so scary
It's
that you could
psychology.
actually
Your
get to that
psychology
point
actually gets better.
and not even realize it. It's like, do we?
I remember,
are we at that point ever in not
It's
realizing
something
it?
to really, really
It's so scary.
be seriously concerned about. Yeah.
You know, I remember when I was doing one of the Hajj lectures, you know, they were talking about the manifestations of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right?
Yeah.
So if you take the 5 daily prayers, if you just take them as just, okay, it's 6 o'clock, I have to go pray, it's this time I have to go to the prayer. But if you, the message behind it, I mean, the prayer itself is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy upon us
Sure.
to give us an opportunity to give us our individual mirages, right? And so that's one mercy, right? And then if we need more than that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, once in a year, He gives us Ramadan to completely where He ties up the shaitan and gives us an opportunity to reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, Hajj or Ramadan could have just happened once in our lifetime, right? He gives us a chance every single year to reconnect with Him, right? And then if we don't even respond to that and we haven't even fasted, He gives us a chance once in our lifetime to be completely free of sin. It's just mercy upon mercy upon mercy upon mercy that He's given us.
Depending on these other
And
chances,
it's
yeah.
the same thing, is that the whole point of this is for us to do this, to establish love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to be grateful to Him.
Yeah, I would say totally.
Well, how you view things is completely dependent on your perspective.
Yeah.
Completely. So, for example, so the reality is the same, right? We have the salah. Let's just say that 5 times a day, make we'll do this, do that, right? So, if your perspective is, you know, you could have any one of these. Okay, I'm obeying Allah. I'm gonna just do it because He said so. Or wow, this is a mercy. Or Islam is so hard, right? Same event, reality has not
Yeah.
changed, just your perspective.
Yeah.
So,
That's part of the point here. One clue also, why is it especially easy here, is because their book that they were given was law. Right? Jesus, peace be upon him, his was focused on the heart. Meaning that if you put Jesus and Moses together, peace be upon him, then you get the prophet. Right? Because Moses is given the law. So if you're not given Tazkiyah, which is who? So if you're not giving Tazkiyah, right? Then think about how easy it is to work around and do loopholes with the law, right? When I was getting my car, a friend of mine was helping me in terms of all the negotiating type stuff, and then when we were talking about doing the paperwork, he was surprised that I was not saying that I was from DuPage County, right? Because he said I feel like some tax breaks and stuff. I said, no, just say that. Why are you saying Cook County? And I'm surprised. Why are you even hinting that I should be lying on my? Because he said you live in Cook County. Yeah. Does he have a relative in DuPage County? Like, yeah, but that doesn't matter, right? And so the point is that when you're only focused on text, it's very easy to do this, or much easier than if you're also looking at the spirit of the text.
That's a really good explanation, actually, that Musa al-Islam's people were focused on the law.
That's what they're given,
and
50,000
Muhammad
for fun.
worked on Tazkiyah for the first 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And so Jesus, peace upon him, he's the inverse, right? He's only given the heart.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to stop here. This is the end of this section. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Like, in my heart, I feel like when I see, if I were to see, like, somebody who doesn't even know that something is wrong, but they so, like, comfortably believe that it's okay, that incites more mercy in me than somebody who's, like, kind of like a George, you know what I mean? Like, they know it's wrong.
So, not only do they know it's wrong, not only do they do it, but they're also desi. That's what you're saying, basically.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like a point of, like, to me, that's like, wow, like, this is probably a good person morally, but Islamically, they're so misguided.
But at least they know
Their
it's
heart is
Potentially.
good, you know? But somebody who's like, I'm gonna, like,
Yeah, I know
like,
I'm not supposed to do
wrong
this, yeah.
to people, and I know it's wrong. I feel like that's like awareness.
I had a student who this is interesting, so he took Shahada, and this is way back then when I was getting married. I was the first person he ever met who was getting married. Right? It was 20 years ago. Like, he'd never met such a person, meaning for him, what he was conditioned was, all right, there's a woman, you go live with them. Okay. And that was like, he had to actually like sit and try to process that. Yeah, that sounds like you're describing.
But just what I'm saying, because we're saying plastic is worse, but somehow, like, they're so twisted that you want to have mercy on them.
But I don't know if I would categorize that person as a faucet. Right? That's a person who doesn't know that giant.
Isn't it like
ignorance.
Isn't what you're saying, like, I don't know, there's like this piece about, there's like some news article or news video, but whatever about this, like, gay mom or something.
Yeah.
And so that's like, you know what you're doing is wrong, but you're like, in your head you're just making it, oh, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't that, but then if you do something, if you have something like that, and you know it's wrong and you're trying to fight it, or you're not fighting it, but you know it's wrong, then isn't that better?
So, if I commit a sin and I know it's wrong, versus I don't even realize it's a sin, that's the difference you're making?
Yeah.
I don't know who'd be better, like in terms of akhira. You're saying which one? The person who doesn't know it's a sin would be better?
No, I'm saying the person who knows it's a sin, at least they know like, what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm saying, I don't know. If we assume that the first person is asking for forgiveness, then obviously that person's better.
I don't know what they do with that.
Any other thoughts? Like, scenario one, I know it's a sin and I do it. Scenario two, I don't even know it's a sin and I do it.
Not like you don't know it's a sin, but you like rationalized it in your mind.
Okay, well that'd be
That's
different. That's different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. Like you rationalize it.
Scenario 3 is, how does it affect us? I mean, in other words, whether that A person is better or B person is better, A person is worse.
Like if I wanted to do horrible sins, like which should
Yeah,
I?
in other words, it's sort of like, why even bother judging those two people?
It's not a matter of judging them, it's a matter of understanding your own heart. You know?
But if I'm rationalizing a way to show my sin's not really a sin, then that's what you're talking about. Then that seems like it might be potentially worse.
That's definitely, that's clearly.
That's what you're looking right now. Yeah.
And you gotta know that it's sin and that you're weak and you're not able to.
And then for that, so essentially the first person
That's the strength.
would be more likely to seek forgiveness
Yeah.
than the person who's rationalizing and saying, yeah, we got to do this. Okay, so we've watched the decline of the children of Israel. Now, from this point forward, they're going to be, now they actually become the nomads. They're going to start wandering around the desert, right? Without many of their luxuries, and that's what we'll start covering next time, inshallah.
This is unit 2B still, right?
This is all 2A.
2A.
2A goes up to Ayah 74.
74.
Yeah. Okay, any last questions or thoughts? So some big lessons. Again, the core is ingratitude and then the consequence of ingratitude, where it can lead you step by step by step to the point that your morality gets completely inversed, or your obedience to Allah Ta'ala gets completely inversed. Okay, no questions or thoughts? Hey, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم, glory to you, Allah, وبحمدك, praise and gratitude are to you. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت, we bear witness there is no God but you. نستغفرك, we seek your forgiveness. ونتوب إليك, we return to you. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Okay, now let's all reward you all. We're meeting next week.
Inshallah.